Our first episode of 2024, it's the Business Untitled Trio back at you.
It's not linear.
Yeah.
It's that work, you know, and then before you know it, boom, something happens and you're like 10x, 3x, 5x, whatever it is. But that like kind of taker instinct is what holds you back. For me, I was always like, just working as hard as I could with faith that like one day this will turn the corner.
Our first episode of 2024, it's the Business Untitled Trio back at you. We're rested, we're tanned. I've been a little sick, so excuse the voice. We're excited. We're going to kind of break in the new year, talking about opportunities we see. You know, what's the outlook for 2024? Dave, Mel.
Your co-stars?
My co-stars. They're not sick. They're looking good. Mel's getting skinnier by the frickin' episode. My first prediction of 2024 is that by the end of this year, Mel will be less than 200 pounds.
How much you weigh now? No kidding.
How much, Mel?
228.
All right.
28 more
200.
pounds.
I don't
From
think you should be less.
246. 246 was crazy.
Nice.
You guys
Why didn't
can
you tell me I was that big?
DM me bets. I'm giving 1 to 3 odds.
Are you paying in Bitcoin?
I'll pay in Bitcoin, which is going to be worth a lot more at the end of the year.
Tell us about that.
What do you think Bitcoin's
What do you think?
going to be worth
What's
by
up
the
with
end of the year?
Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto?
Listen, this is the most important 5 days of the year in Bitcoin because finally, after years of waiting, the SEC on Monday is going to approve the Bitcoin ETF, which means every mom and dad who has a stock market account will be able to buy a share, which includes Bitcoin. When we did the gold ETF, the gold price skyrocketed for a while. It just brings in more people to the community. And so the government was reticent. There are ETFs in Canada and in Brazil, but U.S., which is by far the biggest market, didn't have one. And we're finally going to get the ETF. And so that's a big deal for Bitcoin.
Is it a big deal for the other cryptos?
It is, because as money comes into Bitcoin, money comes into the crypto ecosystem. And so people see that as a validation of the space, but they also will at one point sell Bitcoin to buy Ethereum, or they'll buy Solana, or what we call the degens, right? The degenerates, the real young crypto speculators. They bet on everything. And so once they get money, it just starts recycling. And so you're seeing a frothy bullish market right now, people making lots of money again. That all just takes that initial push of confidence in, and that's what this ETF's getting us.
Mike, for Christmas, surprised me and Dave with Cartier love bracelets. Kind of weird.
It's a little gay. It is a little gay. It's a little gay.
But, you know, it was really nice. What do you think of your love
Wolfpack.
Hey,
bracelet?
it was our 10th episode, friendship bracelets, friends for life.
Where's yours at?
It's getting my initials engraved in it.
So, Dave, I wanted to talk to you about real estate.
Right.
Because speaking of a cousin of mine who's doing a couple projects, and in my neighborhood, the biggest real estate guy is the guy who buys a house, flip a house, buy a house, flip a house, buy a house, flip a house, buy a house. And as you guys know, I just recently got into real estate, kind of got my first building.
Nice.
Somebody claps.
I didn't hear you clapping.
I got to see a picture before I clap.
And I'm starting to understand that real estate is much more than buying and flipping. It's more like financial engineering.
That's right.
And my community broadly, we don't know that. We just kind of know you buy a house, build it up a little bit, flip it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you look at real estate, and how do you make money off real estate? Just kind of tell us a little bit about that. Not from the development side, but from the, I guess if you were saying just buying and holding, or buying and flipping, or buying and renting.
Right. That's a good question. So real estate values are driven by interest rates, and it's a very capital-intensive industry in general, right? So when you're buying a piece of real estate, it's a big investment, and the industry works off a lot of leverage, a lot of borrowing, essentially, because it's just such a vast industry and it's so capital intensive. So I think when you're looking at a buying and flip mentality, it's not really taking maximum effect of that leverage, right? It's kind of looking at it like, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go out quick. But what the loans allow you to do is borrow cheaper than the rate of cash flow return, right? So if you have a project and you buy it for $1 million and it's got $100,000 of cash flow, and then you can, right, that's a 10% return, right? Effectively, right?
Yeah.
You're getting $100,000 on your $1 million. If you can then go borrow $500,000 at 5%, right? Now you're getting $75,000 still returned to you. Did I just say that? Yeah, I said, yeah. But you've only got $500,000 in. So now your return just went up to 15%, right? From 10 to 15. So if you can like focus on that and like for a second and say, that's the magic of borrowing and leverage, right? I'm using really simple math, but the way you build wealth over time in real estate is you buy something, $1 million makes $100,000 of cash flow. You borrow $500,000 at 5%, right? You're paying $25,000 to service that, and now you're getting 15%, not 10%. And what's going to happen is that value is going to go up over time, and you're going to reborrow money and then invest it in something else. What do you got?
I was going to say other people's money.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't have a lot of capital yourself, you want to borrow other people's money.
Yep.
And for your community especially, right, there's FHA loans up to $400,000, I think $480,000 now, that you can borrow government subsidized money. And so easier to get, first time home buyers. And so you got to make sure there's a neighborhood you like, that you've got some duration that you want to stay there. B, you probably want to buy when interest rates are heading down, but not when they're all the way down, right? By the time interest rates are all the way down, prices have gone way too high. Prices start going down when interest rates go high. And so it's a pretty interesting time now. Dave and I were talking about this because rates are headed down. Mortgage rates have gone from 8 to 7. They'll probably go from 7 to 6, maybe even to 5.
Yeah.
And so as rates go down, prices will go up.
Right.
And so it's a pretty interesting time.
Timing wise, I think it's an interesting time to buy real estate for exactly that reason.
It's a good time to buy real estate right now.
I think certain types of real estate. Yeah, I do.
Like what types of real estate?
No, I think it's a good time to buy a home, a condo, a residential property if you're, you like the area. I mean, there's another set of analysis, but I think like even getting back to your question though, there's something about real estate because it's so capital intensive that you have to be comfortable that taking on debt is a part of getting yourself wealthy. You won't get wealthy as quickly if you never take debt. And it's against like this, like, let's call it like this immigrant mentality or pure work ethic kind of mentality where I never want to owe a dime. I just want to do it all myself.
You got to borrow, baby.
In real estate, and in many businesses you do, but in real estate, because it's so capital intensive and the cash flow is rather predictable as well. Like it may not be entirely predictable, but this apartment's going to rent between $3,000 and $3,300, right? So when you borrow that money, it really gives you the power, it gives you the leverage because this bank is taking less return than you're basically scooping the excess cash flow, and it's okay to run that debt indefinitely as long as that cash flow is there. And I think that's something also that you have to get in your mind as a real estate developer or investor is that it's okay to have debt on your balance sheet as long as you have the cash flow to support it that's growing, because eventually you're going to pay that debt down. It's going to look cheap in 5 years or 10 years. That's why people...
And quite frankly, let's just say you take a mortgage today at 7% and interest rates go way down. The brilliant thing about mortgages is they're refinanceable.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're callable debt in essence. And so, you know what? Let's assume 18 months later, rates are a lot lower. You borrow money cheaper, you pay back the expensive debt, and now you've really, you're cooking with gas.
But what happened if you took that loan last year or year before at 3% or 2% or 1% and you don't have the capital to sustain that loan because it went to 8%.
Well, no. When you take the loan at 1%, it stays at 1%.
Well, it depends.
No,
it depends.
doesn't.
If you got a floating rate loan or a fixed rate loan.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I'd be very careful with floating
But
rate
I'm saying
loans.
the ton of people that actually did it.
At this point in time, to be honest, listen,
Now you take a floating rate
You
loan.
can. So there's times to take floating rate, times to take fixed rate. But on the other hand, if you really knew the answer to that, you'd be trillionaire.
Well,
because,
let me make it simple. When rates are below 4%, you should be taking fixed rate all day long. When rates are above 8%, you should be taking floating rate. Like, broadly, we had this environment where rates went to 0, 1%, 2%. That's not coming back.
Ever.
It might, but let's not bet on it. And so when you're locking in 4%, you're pretty damn lucky.
I would say this. Let me tell you something about that happened in my career, though. Just right, I always took fixed rate for the first 20 years. 20 years of developing. I was like, I don't want the risk of floating rate. I know where my cash flow is going to be, and I don't want to take a risk that interest rates are going to go up and it's going to wipe me out. It was fine, but there's no question about it that had I been taking floating rate debt at that point in time, I would have had.
Yeah, but be careful. We went through
I'm not advocating, Mike. I'm not advocating.
We went through a once in a generational deflationary global convergence
we did.
that put rates at 0.
We did, but I'm just saying, like, there's balance on both sides. I'm not disagreeing that if you're starting out, I think you should lean heavily towards fixed rate loans.
I think I'm giving you a great framework. Below 4%, pay fixed. Above 8%, go floating.
Well, what are you even talking about? What are you quoting? SOFR or the 10-year?
SOFR. Or the 10-year, or the 30-year even. You know, again, it's all roughly.
I would put a different frame on it, but
okay. So a floating, just so people know, floating versus fixed rate. When you took a fixed rate, is it less interest than a floating rate at the time? Or more?
It's typically a fixed rate. Is more than a floating rate.
Yeah.
That's structurally. It can vary. It varies, but
it depends what the shape of the yield.
It depends what the shape of the yield curve is, but typically it's unusual that a floating rate will be more than fixed. But right now, that's what exists. Right now, floating rate is actually more than fixed rate. Effectively, like I'm saying, like the SOFR's at 5 or whatever it is, 5 and change, and Treasury's at 3.9. Right. But generally, that's inverted. So usually, a fixed rate will cost you more.
The other thing we're not talking about, there is a 30 million house shortage in America, right? There's a housing shortage in America, and so even though prices came down some, it's hard for them to keep coming down. We've got immigrants coming in. The biggest buyers of housing in America over the last 40 years are second-generation immigrants. The American dream.
Yeah, but we have so much immigrants coming in, right? Especially to New York. I can't remember the number, but we have some ridiculous number coming in. It's crazy because we have to house them, right, by our law. But then they're not allowed to work.
Yeah, that's changed.
For 9 months. It hasn't changed yet. Maybe it may change, but what about the people who came here for the last 9 months to a year?
Well, it changed for some small percentage of the people. Listen, we've got immigrant crises right now.
Yeah,
this is, I hope, not a permanent feature of our immigration policy or the city of New York. Like a python that eats a rat, you see it go through the stomach.
Yeah.
Like this will work its way through the system. Those immigrants will find jobs. They'll find communities. They'll work their way into the system. Let me tell you an immigrant story. My grandfather came to this country. I was just doing this math recently. Came to this country in the 30s, pre-World War II. He had 6 kids that lived past the age of 2. They had 24 kids. They had 49 kids, and so he had 49 great-grandkids, and he's got 6 great-great-grandkids, and so one guy. And I think about that community of people. My uncle in Minnesota got into the fiberglass business, became a billionaire.
Hey, you have an uncle that's a billionaire?
I got an uncle that's a billionaire.
Billionaire Mike.
I got actors and teachers and social workers and musicians and philanthropists. And when you think about the contribution of the group of Novogratses that he brought, that one immigrant did, we've paid over $1 billion in tax to this country. We've created businesses. That's one immigrant. And so when we talk about immigrants in America, like there's 100 stories like my uncle, 1,000 stories, 10,000 stories.
Why do you think, you just said you have a billionaire uncle, which is crazy, right? So a billionaire's been running in your family.
No, I became a billionaire first.
All right. You hear that again? He just said he's a billionaire. I didn't even say it.
Scratch that.
But
How many episodes is that?
listen.
Yeah.
That's the 10th one. He said it straight. But listen, right? You said philanthropy. What else you said?
We got artists, business people,
Social work.
Immigrant,
social workers,
right?
teachers,
My
athletes.
I'm an immigrant. My grandmother's an immigrant. My mother was an immigrant. I have an uncle who was shot and murdered. I have a couple family members that been in gangs. My whole community either was gang, not whole, but a lot of people from my community was gang members, scammers. A lot of more negative shit with the immigrant story versus yours. You just said, you haven't said, unless you missed that out, you just haven't said one cousin that was on drugs, one cousin that was in gangs.
We've had plenty of people that gone through rehab. I had one uncle that committed suicide. Like
Anybody
every family
in
has
gangs?
tragedy. Nobody in gangs.
Why do you think that is?
Listen, the legacy of slavery in this country remains the stain of the country. It just does. And multi-generational poverty in communities that have suffered multi-generational poverty, we haven't found a way out yet.
So you think it's just because you guys moved to the right zip code?
No, my grandfather came and he worked in a cement mill. He picked up 90-pound bags of cement. I tried to pick up 90-pound bags of cement. It takes a lot of strength to pick up a 90. And he walked it 8 feet and put it on a train car and then repeated 10 hours a day. They had hour lunch break. At the end of the day, they were covered from head to toe in dust, like dust men. They'd go under a freaking cold shower with their clothes on, shower all the fucking dust off. I'm not making this up. They'd walk to the bar, they'd get fucking soused, come home drunk, have their wife having prepare them food, wake up and do it again. Like that.
That also happened in my community too. Tons of nurses, tons of maybe not cement,
but their kids,
nannies, so on and so forth.
Their kids broke a rule. Boom! They get the shit beat out.
Our kids broke a rule. They got the shit beat out of them too.
And then my dad went to West Point. His brother went to Moravian Academy, which is a school in Allentown. Right? His other brother went to Pitt.
So it is the right zip code.
What?
It is technically kind of the right zip code.
Well, they grew up in an immigrant community.
There's no more immigrant community than Flatbush.
Their parents were aspirational. When you grow up in a zip code with broken families, right? With poverty already in that zip code. Like they were poor, but they didn't live poor. They'd go to church my grandmother went to church every day of her life. They'd all go to church on
So it is the right zip code.
Sundays. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. But it wasn't like it was a rich zip code, right? It was rich in
poor
spirit.
Zip code.
Economically, it was unbelievably poor, but it was not poor in spirit. It was not poor in crime. It was not poor in broken families. Right? One of the problems with the black community today is, I think, in New York City, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7 kids grow up in a family with 2 people with the dad staying at home. Right? The term baby mama doesn't exist in white America, or now it does, but it didn't when my dad grew up. And so the fabric that got broken down after slavery, with not just slavery, but then the 100 years after slavery, we haven't been able to rebuild that, and so that's really
But even with that said, at this point in time, there's still opportunities in whatever immigrant community you're in Flatbush or in Pennsylvania or whatever, and that's what's like.
Here's some shocking
country.
numbers. The average white family in America makes $60,000. The average Indian family in America makes $100,000. Number one immigrant community in America is the Indians.
Right, so that
Right?
still
The
shows
average black,
like
the average black family in America, I think it's 38,000. And so blacks, then Hispanics, then whites. But you know who beats the whites? Pakistanis, Chinese, and Indians.
It's crazy.
It's work ethic. It's focus on education. It's discipline. If you look at how many single parent households there are in each of those communities, not that many Indian divorces, right? Those Indian families have 2 parents with a huge focus on education.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, getting back to real estate, it's a good time to buy a house.
It's a good time to buy a house.
No, because you have interest rates working for you, you have immigration and population working for you, and you just have a pent-up demand of 30-somethings that haven't been able to buy a house that are coming into that market because interest rates have been high, so people have been locked into their house. They don't want to leave their fixed-rate mortgage, essentially. And when interest rates start to go down, which they are, stuff's gonna, like the market's gonna explode.
Dave, what about commercial real estate? So
No, but wait.
Yeah, go on.
Before that,
Yeah,
not the good time to buy a house. We know that.
yeah.
Well, you just said that, but I want to talk about like the multi-family. You have
Yeah.
thousands and thousands of units, right? Like,
Yep.
I just got in that space in our group, which Mike is a part of. We have 300 and something units, right? Like, and now I'm starting to realize and understand real estate outside of buying a house. Good time to buy a house. I've always heard that.
Yeah.
Good time to buy a house.
Yeah.
I want to kind of talk to the viewers and listeners on not just a good time, but how do you go about, and I'm new, so you're
Yeah.
better off telling them, how do you go about buying the multifamily units, the buildings with 17, 80 units, 200 units, so on and so forth? How do you get there? Like, do you have to start at buying a house?
No,
you gotta have money.
You don't. Well,
Can we
no,
let the real estate
you
guy
don't-
talk?
You don't have to have money though. You have to find money, right? At the end of the day, right? So when you're starting out, you need to figure out how to find money. Banks are one piece, but a bank is only going to lend you 60%, 65, whatever that might be, depends on how it is. And then you got to find other investors. You can take non-bank money, right, at higher interest rate, or you can find some partners, right? It's no different than any other business. And you can say, hey, you know what? Let me put this together. Let me do the work here. You put all the money in, besides the bank, I'm saying on this side, and you take 75% of the profits and I'll take 25. But you still get 25% of the profits for doing the work, right? So sweat equity comes into that a lot. You got to find the money, put it together, and a lot of it's opportunistic. Real estate, not every piece of property is the same whether you're buying or developing, right? This one has problems. This one has a sewer that runs through it. This one, the soil's soft or the building's cracked. So you have to like do a lot of legwork, and your value can be that you're like, look, I checked this out. This thing's got the right zoning. It's got good cash flow, right? You put the case together, and then you go find money, and you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it now, right?
Yeah,
Just like I was able to do it for Bojangles. But that's mainly because I ended up in this circle, right? So I'm me 12 years ago in Flatbush trying to raise $1 million, right?
Yeah.
I just raised $25 million, and now I'm raising for this and that and that. But me 10 years ago, I wouldn't even know where, how, what, who.
That's why you didn't do it.
That's why what?
That's why you didn't do it.
No, and
it's hard.
No, I didn't even
It's hard.
know about
it's
doing
hard.
it. It
It's
is hard.
And so the guys that do it, do the work. They figure out how to network. They figure out what government programs are there for them. They figure out is there an edge. I got a friend.
Sometimes there's seller financing, to be honest, right? There's sometimes
Explain
times.
that.
Well, you can say, hey, I'll buy this, I'll take a cheaper price, but you take back you take back the mortgage. Like if you can't get a bank, you can say to someone, I've scrapped together $100,000 for this $500,000 piece. You'll owe them the money and you'll pay it off when you can get a mortgage because you've been there for a year, you've made, the property's a success. There's a lot of ways. There's so many ways to raise money. It's like we could spend hours, talking about that. But I think it's a lot of like, you need to like put the deal together, make it look, have confidence in that deal, and then use your network, start off small.
So Mel, one of the things I think people in your community aren't taught is the confidence hustle gene. I got a friend, a formerly incarcerated guy, Glenn Martin, who has a burgeoning real estate empire. He started with no money. But he had this confidence hustle gene and did exactly all the things Dave's talking about. Now, the more people that look like you that do that, the more young kids are going to say, I can do it too. We just haven't had a lot of that.
I would also say real estate is something, when you look back at somebody that's been in real estate for 30 years like I have, right? you're like, wow, how the hell did they get all these properties, right? But it's been 30 years, right? It's not like overnight. It's not like in 1 year or 2 years you're going to be worth like $1 billion. You know, in a sense, there's perseverance and like using the markets and the leverage to your advantage.
That's 100% true. I have this friend, Catherine. You met her,
Yeah,
in Miami. I think you met her too. She started this. Catherine, this is free promotion. Her shit is called Way Forward. She started this company, Way Forward, which is like hoodies, sweaters, blah, 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 blah. It's really nice. And I watched her go from like selling online, like, you know, Instagram, whatever, one shirt here, two there, so on and so forth. Then she scraped up enough money, opened a location on Bleecker Street, right? This woman bike rides to work every single day. And this year, she made twice the money she did last year. And now she's talking about another location. And I was having a conversation with someone, and I was like, you know, that's just how things happen. You got to put in the work. Like, you watch her go from selling one thing online to making enough money to open a store. Now, possibly opening 2 stores. And then she go from biking every day to being able to afford an Uber. And then she go from an Uber to being able to...
I was wondering if the biking was an exercise thing.
No,
it
it was an economic thing. But, and then, God willing, things go right. 5-10 years from now, she has $100 million or even $1 billion brand.
Yep.
And nobody really got to see that biking to work every day. Or even with me, or like you just said 30 years, it's like, they've got all these properties, or how Mike became a billionaire, you know? Like, it was the work, you know? And I think that's what people, and that's the thing too with social media. Like, I have bad days. We all have bad fucking days, right? But no one goes on Instagram or Facebook or any social media platform and broadcast their fucking failures, right? So when you look at social media, or you just talk to somebody and hear their story, you hear the W, you hear this, that. You didn't hear about the 10 things you failed. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think is like real important to get across to people, that you just said it. You see all these things now, and it took 30 years of work.
Even Mike, right? Like, I was with Mike was at Goldman Sachs, right? Left Goldman Sachs, he took a year off, right? Started Fortress, joined West Pete. You guys put Fortress together. And I remember being in the car with you the day that they were announcing you were going public, right? They didn't announce it yet, but somebody called you on the phone, and he was like, damn, our stock's gonna be worth $1 billion. And I'm like there was 5 partners at the time. And I'm like $1 billion between you, you know? And he's like, no, like $1 billion each, you know? And I remember that moment, but at that was a 10x of your wealth at that moment, right?
10x.
Like, I'm saying you were rich.
Instantly.
You were rich, but that moment I was like, what the, you know what I mean? I was like, what? Like, it just blew my mind, right? Because it was
What year was this?
2006.
Was it 6? Yeah. And I'll just never forget that moment. But it's those moments, like, you know, he was pounding away at Goldman Sachs for 15 years before that, making good money in the institutional context. It's a great job.
You know, when I joined Goldman Sachs, I met this guy, and he told me something that was really interesting. He said, because you care so much when you're starting, what am I making this year? And what's that guy next to me making? I made 82, he made 85. What the fuck? That's not fair. And the guy said, come here. He said, son, I promise you that you'll make more money in 1 year between 34 and 38 than you made in all the rest of the years combined.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my 33rd year, I made more money times 5 than all the rest of the years combined. Yeah. And then in my 41st year, I made more money times 10 than the rest of the years combined. And so it slow, and then it happens.
Well, it's like, you know what? It's not linear.
Yeah.
It's that work, you know, and then before you know it, boom, something happens, and you're like 10x, 3x, 5x, whatever it is. But that instinct to like look around and say, oh, I should be getting $10,000 more, that like kind of taker instinct is what holds you back. For me, I was always like, just working as hard as I could with faith that like one day this will turn the corner, you know? And then when you least expect it, that's what I was talking about. And that's the same for you. Let's talk about your story about
I mean, for me,
hustling music.
Even like right now, like like, I feel like I don't know when it ends. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I'm just like,
Mel, it hasn't even started for me.
no, that's what I'm saying. I just, like, at one point, right? Like, at one point, I could take $1,000 shot, right? 10 times, because I probably had $10,000. This is however long ago, right? But I would take those shots, and I'd just be on E.
Yeah.
And then one of those shots would work out. I'd make 10,000, 10 times my money, maybe two if I get lucky. And then I got to a place where, okay, now I could take 10 $10,000 shots, right? And if
Yeah.
one or two work out, wow, I made 200 grand. And that's what it keeps going with me. Now I'm at a place where, you know, I could take much bigger shots. And now I'm waiting for one of those shots to work out. And I feel like one of those shots would be 30 million, 50 million, 100 million, so on and so forth. And it keeps going. It keeps going. So I think.
Well, it stops when you decide, like, we want it to stop. So some people get
No, but I still feel, when I'm saying, when does it stop? I don't want it to stop.
But some
I want
people
to keep
do.
working
Some people
forever.
do. I got plenty of friends that had their win and said, you know what? I don't want the adrenaline anymore. I'm going to take my money. I'm going to invest it at 7, 8, 10% a year. I'm going to live off the interest. I'm going to become a professor. I'm going to read. I'm like, not
I
everybody.
don't think that's none of us in this room.
It might not be, but not everybody has the same. So you got to actually know who you are as well, right? Or I'm going to take a 2-year break and then come back and do something completely different.
Because even with you guys, like, that's why it doesn't really stress me out. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, right? Because I'm like, I'm working, pounding the street, pounding. And then I look to my left and my right, and you guys are pounding the streets. So it's just like, I'm like, it just never stops. It never stops. You just got to find a way, I guess, to not have it stress you out as much, right?
Well, you've got to do things that you like.
Because you have your days you're stressed out.
If you do things you like and you're
do things you
passionate
like.
about, I don't feel like I get stressed out about that stuff too much.
I don't think you do as much as he do.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Or as much as I do.
I take a lot more leverage than you guys.
I take a lot of
I take a lot of
leverage.
leverage. But you know what? No, you know what's different about our businesses is Mike's business is marked to marketed every day effectively, right? So you have to work on these waves of emotion, like, oh my God, my position's up 10 million, it's down 20 million. You know, in real estate, we were talking about this before. You don't have a mark to market. Like, you don't know. I don't get like notifications every day. This apartment building lost $5,000. This went up $250,000. So it's like a process that I'm committed to and have faith that if I'm doing these things, why are you laughing?
I remember a funny story I'm going to tell you right after.
All right. But anyway, that's why, because I think for
the
Mike,
mark-to-market is a big deal.
because we're in the Dominican Republic and he's like, oh my God, like, you know, this is draining, that's draining. And I'm just like, for all I know, real estate could be going down a lot that day, but I'm not getting told about it. I'm not seeing it because it's a long-term vision that I have.
So I'm going to tell you a funny story in a second, but I remember one of the craziest things is I was with you somewhere. I had made $1 million that day, and you had made $1 billion that day.
Get out of here.
I'm not even joking. And we celebrated. Obviously, he paid for everything, right? And then I've been with Mike other days where he lost $1 billion, and I'm just like, what the fuck? What do you mean you lost $1 billion? And he would be like, ugh. But then we'd go back to normal. And that's what you're saying with his thing.
Yeah.
He kind of feels
And
it.
listen, when you have a stock that's illiquid, you know, the valuation goes up and down. You can't get yourself tied to it, even though it's like.
But you do, though. I see you.
Yeah.
It doesn't last forever, but in
you know,
DR, you was
it's
freaking out, right?
Because that's different. That wasn't my stock price. That was actually a bet that was getting squeezed against me. It's real money.
But even in my world, I'm saying I don't have that visual
Yeah,
of
at all.
getting squeezed.
I agree.
Mike could tell you exactly if he lost $5 today or if he lost $5 million today or $5,000.
Yeah.
You and I was walking by wherever, somewhere in Soho, and was talking about those shoes On Clouds, and you pointed to this building randomly, and you was like, "Oh, that's my building at On Clouds is," and I love On Clouds so much, and I was like, "Damn, how much do they pay in rent there?" And I remember you looked so confused, and I was like, "Yeah, how much do they pay you in rent?" And you was like, I don't know. Think big picture. Like, I own the building. And I was like, damn, in that moment, I realized, and you said something about Bojangles. You was like, it's like me asking you what.
How many meals you sold in your
Yeah, like,
store 18 in
and
Atlanta
that's the thing,
today?
like,
yeah.
we don't think like that in the restaurant business and in music. We kind of like quarterly, year end, so on and so forth, versus Mike's is every day, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm bald. Hey, so let's talk about music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rap music is in the toilet.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
Not in the toilet.
it's
Maybe
not in the
like-
toilet.
It's on the
In
seat.
the toilet
You
is
told me it was down
straight.
40%.
It's down 40%.
We call that the toilet in my business.
From what? Down 40 from what?
From
Like from last year or something?
from all-time high.
Oh, from all-time high.
It is.
Bitcoin's down 40% from all-time high too. Not in the toilet. Just saying.
Bitcoin's up 150% this year.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
what's-
but
what's
if
it
you
down
want to
from its
look at it
all-time
that
high?
way, rap music went up fucking 2,000% since it
When
started.
something goes down 40%, it feels painful.
It is
Because
painful.
all your projections are made based on it continue to go up.
It is painful, and everyone's trying to understand and figure out why, you know. And this, I think every music trend goes through this, and rap is much, much bigger than the trend. But I think it had a lot to do with COVID, had a lot to do with TikTok, it had a lot to do with new music pumping out every day. You can't even really get your mind to fall in love with one album because 5 more come out so fast. So one is music being pumped out that fast. Different genres of music are picking up, and the world is just getting this, like this girl Taylor or whatever from South Africa. She's like the biggest thing in the world. So
Taylor Swift?
no,
I'm
not
kidding.
Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift is huge. Her name is like Taylor. There's so many different genres of music happening right now that, yeah, rap is not on the high that it once was, right?
What is on the hot? Like what music is like kind of coming up, or is it just TikTok's kind of taking this over and fragmented it in a way?
I wouldn't really say it's fragmented because the rappers who have been selling forever, they are still selling. Like Drake is still selling. J. Cole is still selling. Kendrick Lamar is still selling. And I could keep going, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the rappers who are trying to break through now. But there's so many of them. So it's like the reason it's down 40% now is because we used to take 500 shots. Now we're taking 15,000 shots, right? So if you miss, 5,000 out of 15, feels like, damn,
Yeah.
I'm down 40%. But really and truly,
But it's down 40%.
yeah, but we're putting out so much
Doesn't matter
more
what- doesn't matter
music.
what
It
we're putting out.
doesn't. I'm not making that argument.
Your logic's not making sense. It's down. If it's down 40%, it's down 40%. That
It
means
is down 40%,
people-
but we're
but
putting
also-
out so much more
but al-
music.
also
That's
he-
even more.
It's
but he's
literally like all of a sudden now, Bitcoin is.
But again,
No.
He's saying it's off the all-time high.
Listen.
No, but it's different. When you're just saying you're down 40%, you're saying minutes listened by the community is down 40%.
But off its all-time high.
Right, which means as you're putting out more songs, each song is even down more than 40%.
No, not necessarily.
I'm just doing the
Okay.
math.
If Bitcoin came right now and somebody found, I don't know, let's say an extra million coins somewhere.
Well, that changes the whole dynamic of Bitcoin.
That's what I'm saying is happening with music.
What? But if,
We're putting out so much content.
but you can't. You're talking about the market.
I understand what you're saying, but like in any event, so rap's in a
So
little
why do
bit
you
of.
think rap's down?
I don't know. I'm asking now. Why do I think? I would say I don't know what effect TikTok has had on this. All I know is looking at Mel, and I see that he looks on TikTok a lot for, they source a lot of things where I think the industry used to work differently, and Orlando kind of told us about that too. So it's more fragmented. Maybe the quality of what's being produced is like they're not putting the quality into like the albums and going away and like spending as much time. I don't know.
Say that. And here's
Maybe
the thing:
not.
there's no one, not even the CEO of Warner or the CEO of UMG, could come here and tell you exactly why it's down 40%.
Well, let me ask you this,
All we know is a lot more music come out. TikTok is now changing things by the second. So my answer is just speculation. And anyone to just tell you is no one actually knows. Coach K don't even know.
Is Cardi B hip hop or pop?
Hip hop.
Because like, is it partly
Anything
that some of
that's
this stuff's crossed over to
that
pop?
gets-
Like, would Cardi B be hip hop?
Yeah, she would be hip hop. Yeah,
She'd be hip hop, not pop.
hip hop, but crossover.
Right? Because
But we would still count that as hip hop.
You think people got sick of the violence?
or maybe tired of the
I don't know.
message.
Honestly,
Like, I don't know. I'm just speculating, but the kind of buying what you're buying, girl. Like maybe the message hasn't broadened out. Like it's gotten a little bit repetitive.
what is winning, right? And you see it all across the board with the Taylor Swifts, that Drake's, is storytelling. And I think what's happening with a lot of rappers, and it's happened for a long, long time, is that it was more so just making shit rhyme and cool bars, and maybe speculation, people got tired of that a bit, right?
Yeah.
Because the artist that's actually winning is the artist that's saying something. The J. Cole's, who's telling you a story. The Travis Scott's, who has these amazing performances and is making good music. Kanye West.
Did his apology clear him? Is he coming back?
You know what? It's too soon to tell.
He's always coming back.
He's always coming back.
That's what I
though.
said as soon as it happened.
You did say that.
How's his new album?
It's not out yet. He has a song. Kanye is dope. He's Kanye West. He's a little, but he makes good music.
Maybe also the all-time high, because
But
it had
even
gotten.
Taylor
Speaking of
Swift,
Kanye,
storytelling.
I saw Little Drummer Boy YouTube. Kanye's Sunday service doing Little Drummer Boy. Best fucking Little Drummer Boy you'll ever see. Put it on YouTube.
Wait, what? Recently?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was probably from a few years ago, but
Yeah.
I just saw it last night.
Who's drumming? Kanye West?
No, the Little Drummer Boy. They told me.
It was at one of his gospel
brunches.
brunches.
It's one of his gospel
Yeah,
brunches.
The one I slept through?
No, not his gospel brunches. It was one of the ones that
one of the Sunday
Kanye
services,
did.
yeah.
Sunday services, yeah.
But he slept through it.
QSR is
Oh,
coming back.
right.
And I'm excited about that. The restaurant business is coming back. QSR, quick service restaurants. So like Bojangles, Popeyes, KFC.
Yeah, that's because the economy's mild recession. People go back to.
You think we're
cheaper
going to have a
fast food.
recession next year?
We're going to have a mild recession. We just are. You can see it in the numbers. I
But
don't think it's going to be deep.
negative GDP growth in 2
I think
quarters.
probably, but we'll just touch it. It'll be a really soft recession.
I got some questions for you, actually. What is your thoughts on two things, right? Us being in $34 trillion worth of debt, the highest we've ever been, right? What does that do for America?
Not good.
Then BRICS. What's your thoughts on all these new nations joining BRICS?
Listen, so $34 trillion of debt is because politicians can't keep their pants on. They just can't stop spending.
That's costing us $2 billion a day.
Yeah.
Biden,
A year.
Biden,
a year?
can't stop
No,
No, sorry.
hey.
Billion, I think it's a trillion.
Trump couldn't
Trillion.
stop
Yeah.
spending. It's both Republicans and Democrats.
So what happens?
And so what happens is, over time, the dollar is worth less and less.
So then that's my next question. BRICS. Does that
Well,
actually
here's
come
the
into
problem
effect?
is
Because we've been to what, reserve dollar for 250
here's
years?
the problem is there's no
like since
other
World War
there's
I.
no other
100
country
years.
100 years.
really that's really standing out, right? If China had been kicking ass and doing everything right, you'd say, well, maybe the Chinese, but China's got a big problem. They got a real estate bubble that's collapsing. And so it's not like you want to put your money in China. Every rich Chinese, every young kid wants to get out of China.
Yeah.
And so it's like China's not a great alternative. Brazil's a great place to have your money right now. I like Brazil.
Brazil is part of BRICS.
Yeah, but not if you're not going to touch it for 10 years.
But
Not if you're not going to touch it
yeah,
for
because
10 years.
you haven't been able
right?
to trust the stability of the government there.
Yeah, because when you're talking about money, right? Central banks and and the trust, right? You need to think more long term than it's.
It's why
right
I keep
now.
saying. It's why I keep on every one of these episodes. I say gold's going to be $3,000 next year. It's $2,000 right now, right? Bitcoin is going to be higher because these things that have limited supply, right? there's just not that much gold that we know exactly how many Bitcoin there are. They're going to go up because we keep printing more dollars.
Yeah, I mean, if you,
Okay,
I
so-
was going to say that if you look at gold, right, and you look at Mike's like it's going to go up from 2,000 to 3,000. Take that, right? Another way of looking at that is that the dollar is going to collapse against gold, right? It's like the commodities here and the dollar is just getting less valuable. Like when you say bananas are going up, are bananas going up or is the dollar going down?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's one reason stocks had a great year. Stocks might have another great year because stocks are another store of value, right? Again, is the stock worth that much or is the dollar worth less?
Yeah, yeah.
So who and this might be a stupid question, but I don't know. You would know. Where's the central bank of BRICS?
There isn't.
There isn't. So
No.
who are we trusting? Not we.
BRICS is a
marketing term.
metaphysical concept. Right? There's a loose arrangement between Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa to work together. But it's not a single currency. It's not a single
Never will be.
fiscal policy. Not a
Don't
single
think it
monetary
ever will be?
policy.
I don't
No,
think
no
so.
chance.
No.
No chance.
Why do you even think Brazil's relevant? I know you think it's undervalued right now, but
Because there are very few
yeah.
places in the world that have lots of natural resources and can produce a ton of food. Brazil can produce a ton of food, right? The world needs food, both livestock, chicken, grains, soy, and they've got oil, and that makes them relevant.
Ish. Adjacent. What's their GDP? Yeah, anyway, well, like $1 trillion is. Yeah.
They're top 10 economy in the world.
They're one.
Again, to put it in
25th as
perspective,
big as us,
right?
yeah.
The U.S. is a $27 trillion economy.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to get China wrong. I think it's
China's like 17, 18.
18 trillion.
Yeah.
The next 10 after, that's Germany, Japan, in all of them don't add up to the U.S.
Right.
Right? Like
Can China catch up though?
China will by definition catch up.
I don't agree.
Why?
Because their growth has slowed below 5%, below 4%. Xi's disappearing people. Businesses are leaving. Capital's leaving. Net outflows. It's not a certainty anymore.
Why do
It
you
was
think
a
so?
certainty.
I will
and
bet-
they have a
I will bet
population
you my
problem.
But why? Break
Just
it.
because you got a billion, they got 4 times the amount of people we have.
India has 4 times the amount of
Yeah.
people we have.
What?
India
India's
does
starting from a much, much lower base, but India's probably the best economy in the world to look at structurally. Like if you had to put some money away for 10 years and not look at it, you put it in India.
You would put it on India.
Yeah.
Would you?
And second, you'd put it in U.S.
What?
Second.
Yeah, probably. Brazil, I'd put a lot in right now.
Right now, but 10 years, you can't look at it.
Yeah,
Where would you put it?
What?
I'm saying you'd put India first. U.S. would be second.
Yeah, probably.
Right. So right there, that's telling me like the faith in China isn't right. If you really thought China was growing 6 or 8% a year,
would you put money in China?
It might.
Yeah, listen. Look, China has its issues right now, and they're going to have a tough
time.
year. But China has a monstrously educated workforce.
But would you put your money in China?
Yeah, I would in different companies. I'm not right now
believe you.
because I'm too busy on other things. But listen, I don't think Xi is a long run great thing for China at all. Right? He's killing a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit, but he's not going to be there forever. And China has a monstrously well educated workforce. They put out more engineers.
aging fast.
No, the old engineers are aging, but those guys don't know much.
Yeah.
They put out more new young engineers, and so they've got.
China's also just not very creative though.
you
They
know,
copy. They're the best at copying,
Lee,
but they're not innovative.
Go to Shanghai, take their frickin' airport.
It's
take
still
take
something
their
they
subway.
copied, and
take-
they did it well.
Doesn't matter. Like copying is a great way to make a living.
It is a great way to make a living, but who invents?
What?
Who invents? Who comes up with the ideas?
Israel's got great inventing. We're
Israel,
great at
and
US.
where else? Where's number one?
U.S. is, but I'm not bad mouthing
but
the
Mike, you
U.S.
know
I'm
what-
just saying.
No, I'm
when
not
you're-
saying
when
you're
you're-
bad-mouthing the
when
US.
When you're 4 times the size, even China in a bad year is going to grow at 5%. We're not.
I don't know about that.
We're not.
No, I'm
We're
not
going to
saying
grow
we're
at
not.
1% this year.
I'm saying China might grow at 1% this year. They'll probably grow at 2 or 3, but I'm saying like it was a certainty if you asked me 2 years ago, 3 years ago that China was going to exceed the U.S. In the next.
It's almost still a mathematical certainty.
Maybe not. But
All right, we're gonna have a
listen,
side bet on
we can have a side bet on it. And I would say probability is yes, but I'm saying it's not an entire certainty, and it's going to get them. They're going to take a lot longer to get there. I think Xi's doing damage to that country by disappearing, generals disappearing, business people, net outflows of capital.
No disagreement.
Yeah.
But again, countries, one of the things I've learned as a macro investor are countries are so much more resilient than we think they are because people want better lives. I remember Indonesia, right after Indonesia blew up in 1997, people were like, oh my God, the currency went from 1,800 to 20,000. You could buy a Zegna suit for like $11. It was $11, but it was this. Everything got so cheap. The place was in disarray. And we're like, I'll never come back. And like 2 years later, the place is humming. Why? Because
They said about New York too.
why? Because people want a good life, and once we have an educated population, they put their ass to work and fix things. And China's got a unbelievably ambitious, unbelievably commercial, and unbelievably educated population. They will not go quietly into this night. Now,
They're all trying to get into the U.S.
they are right now.
So
because-
that's our advantage.
And we're acting like complete assholes. Like if we had a smarter government, we'd be taking all these Chinese, giving them green cards, letting them come to work.
Yeah.
Right? They come with capital, education, skills, and work ethic. What I tell you earlier, right? Indians are top economic group. Forget top immigrant group, right? Our top economic group, Indian, Pakistan, China. These immigrant classes work their asses off. They're building America, right? My group, Germans, have been here a long time. Austrians, we're at 60K.
More importantly, what do you think the watch market's going to do this year?
Well, I don't have one yet, so I'll probably buy the top.
No, but let's talk about this crazy story you sent to both of us today. That CVS was banned from using facial recognition. Rite Aid.
Yeah.
Rite Aid.
For 5 years.
For 5 years. Why? You want to break it down?
Racial bias.
Racial
Did you
bias.
see it? Did you read that story? Yeah.
How crazy was that?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
People, like again, all my conservative friends say, no, there's no racism in America. It's just horseshit. There's still a lot of racism in America.
And I think the other point with that is that like technology needs to be guided. It needs to we need to like put regulations and rails around technology. You just can't say like AI facial recognition is getting everything 100% right. They did it and it caused a lot of pain, a lot of problems.
Can you break down what happened?
So Rite Aid was using facial recognition technology to identify shoplifters in its store, and it started racially preferencing them and arresting black women that were completely innocent, right? And so a case got brought against them. They got banned by one of the federal agencies for 5 years for using it. But I think it just shows in general the dangers of just AI and just out-checking our brain to that without thinking through all the ramifications of it.
Well, I've been trying to understand why.
So even AI could be a racist.
Well, why facial recognition doesn't work as well on blacks? It's darker skin. Is it because the people that created it were mostly white and didn't think about that? Probably.
Big possibility.
Well, yeah.
Or it's just more
That's
complicated.
actually a big fucking possibility.
That's my bias, but I don't. I haven't come across a good answer yet. Is it darker skin's harder to figure out?
No. Well, I did read something on it, which is that white people recognize white faces better than black faces. You know what I'm saying? Like more, like you can identify and black people, same thing, will identify black faces more accurately than white faces, right? So if you're programming all that into it, and I'm making the assumption that it's mostly white programmers, right? That the way they're setting up the algorithm, the model, the recognition is biasing. They're not trying to do it that way. It's just that's what.
Yeah, I don't think the programmers are racist.
Intentionally doing it, right? It's just that's
No, but that is true.
reflected in it.
Yeah,
it's reflected in the program because of that.
So I remember a lot of black people. Sometimes I don't remember some white people. Sometimes it just happens.
All right. Well, we got a big year ahead of us. We got to buy some gold.
Yeah, buy some
gold, buy some Bitcoin.
We got to buy some gold ourselves. We can give our
rappers got to
our
make some music of substance.
We're running out of coins.
And then we got to buy some real estate.
We got some exciting guests coming on, and we're episode 10 episodes in?
No, what episode is
I think it's 11.
I think this is 13. 13 episodes in.
13 episodes in?
We got love bracelets from
39 to go before we get to our full year.
Where's your love bracelet?
It's getting engraved right now.
It's really weird, but it's an expensive, nice gift, and I really appreciate it. Forgot the most important thing.
What?
Subscribe,
That's right.
like, comment, and share Business Untitled.
And if you want to see any guests on here in 2024, put them in the comments. We'll try to get them on.
I think
Mel, who's your number one guest you want on next year?
That's a tough one. I would like Donald Trump, to be honest.
That's a hard pull. That's a hard pull.
Didn't you lend Donald Trump some money one time? No.
Did he pay back?
And did he pay back?
Fortress, when I was at Fortress, was a lender to Donald Trump. And I remember
How much you guys lent him?
I don't remember how much, and I don't think I would talk about his personal loan, but I remember walking into the office and I was like, what the hell's Donald Trump doing in the office?
I think we should get Kanye on here.
Kanye would be a great pull. Martha Stewart.
Yeah,
we're going to get Martha Stewart.
I've been saying that for 2 months. Do you even know Martha Stewart? Or you made that up?
We're peeps.
Dave got Snoop Dogg. By the way, that was Dave. Everybody thought it was me because I don't know if you guys are racist. But that was actually Dave Barry who got Snoop Dogg. Mike got no pull.
Come on, Mike.
All right.
Until next week.
Peace out.
Peace.